Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads.
Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle Podcast. Jamie Eads joining you as I do each and every week. This is episode 144. I hope all of you are having a fantastic week out there in Drumland. We're having a great week over here at the Drum Shuffle World Headquarters. We have a great episode for you today. I am going to be joined by Dave Potter right after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks. The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos Drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the US, Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com. Follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, as I mentioned, we're going to be joined by the great Dave Potter here in just a second. Dave has just such a great attitude, and he has done so much great playing over the years. He's kind of a young cat, so some of you may not be familiar with him, but you're going to learn a lot in this interview. But I want to give everybody a heads up. If you don't already have a copy of Dave Potter's Retro Groove, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go get a copy of it. It is absolutely fantastic. You know, I get all kinds of new music from drummers, for me to listen to before I do interviews and whatnot. And I typically listen, 3 or 4 times so I can get an idea of what the project is about. But Dave's Retro Groove record has been in constant rotation since I received it. It's that good. It's a very unique take on some of these classic songs. And as I mentioned to him, you can go one of 2 ways. It's either going to be elevator music or it's going to be just completely badass. And Dave has achieved completely badass. You need a copy of this record. It's fantastic. And I just had such a great time talking to him. Can't wait to catch up on the next go round when we have him back for part 2. You're going to love this cat. Please help me welcome to the Drum Shuffle Podcast, Dave Potter. Good evening, Dave. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. It's going very good.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks for taking time to come on the Drum Shuffle Podcast. I appreciate it. How are things in Hotlanta tonight?
They are true to the nickname of the city. It's pretty hot here. I had to get the AC cranking at the end of March, and it's already had to bob and weave through some wasps coming into my door this afternoon. So, it's summertime has arrived down here.
Well, I'm just right up the road from you in central Kentucky, and we had, like 78 degrees yesterday at the end of March, like you said, and today it's like 45. So we are not, we're not in summertime yet, but being from the South, man, I don't know about you, but it's like now, when I was a kid, it wasn't this way, but now we have summer and winter. There's no in between.
Yeah.
It's like hot or cold. There's no in between, which is interesting to me. But anyway, thanks for taking time to come on the show and talk a little bit to us. I appreciate the time, man.
Oh, it's truly a pleasure and an honor, a blessing for me to be here with you. So thank you.
Man, I appreciate it. So let's do this. As is my tradition here on the show, let's start at the very beginning. Where did you grow up and how did you get into drumming? Do you come from a musical family?
No, not at all, actually. I was born in a little teeny tiny town called Danville, Virginia, which is right over the border of North Carolina. And then when I was 2, we moved to Durham, North Carolina, and that's kind of where I, grew up, as they say. And I had so no professional musicians at all in my immediate or even like close family. I actually recently found out that on my mom's side and her family is Mexican American, there were some cats that played in bands in like the teens and 20s and 30s, but I didn't know anything about them, and neither did she. Now, the one good thing, she played the flute in the marching band, but she had already stopped by the time I got into music. But she did force me to play in the band, which
good.
I did not want to at all.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. You either really want it or you don't want it at all.
Yes. Yeah, I did not want it at all. I mean, I was a little hard-headed juvenile delinquent in training at that point, and I think she wanted, me to be more well-rounded, have some type of outlet for my creative side in the arts, and I chose. It's kind of weird how all that stuff works out, with, fate and kismet and all of that, because I chose the drums because I thought it would be the easiest to learn. I was being as lazy as possible. And oddly enough, there was, I don't know if it was like this for you in band, but there used to be like a certain number of slots for each instrument. And they did that to make it so like there weren't 100 saxophone players and one, clarinetist. Sure. So I was the last. There was somebody else that had a drum spot, and they dropped band, and I got the last drum spot in the band. So that's kind of, again, crazy, if you want to go back to fate and all that stuff. So that's what that's how I started playing the drums.
Okay, I got you. So it was really, if you grew up in North Carolina, that's one state over from me, basically.
Yeah.
It's different because when I talk to cats that are like from, up north, like New York or Massachusetts or whatever, I'm like, well, was it marching band? And they're like, oh no, we didn't have any marching band. We had pep band at hockey games.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's different in the North. There's not really a marching season, so I'm guessing you grew up doing like the marching band for football games, right?
So yes and no. We had a pep band for the basketball games, and then the high school that I went to, and that's when I really started, really started playing like the drums. It was a magnet school, and there was no football team. There's every other sport but football.
Okay.
And so I was in the concert, like the wind ensemble, and then that was before I didn't even get a drum set until going into my sophomore year of high school. So we did that, and then I was aware of other high schools' marching bands, but I got hip to like the DCI stuff.
Okay.
And me and some of the other guys in the percussion section, we actually started just a drum line. We didn't have the full marching band, but we just really dug the whole rudimental marching percussion, side of things, and we started working on that stuff. And that's so they're in kind of a weird way. Yes, that was kind of the first stuff I was doing is concert and kind of rudimental percussion.
I gotcha. Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to Florida State, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now when you went to Florida State, did you go to the music program? Was that kind of what sent you to Florida State, or were you a business major? I guess is the question.
No. Yeah, it was straight music for me.
Okay.
I had my junior year, we got a new band director who was actually a jazz trumpet player, and he went to Florida State.
Okay.
And so when I found out that he knew jazz, I was just getting into playing jazz. I was, the first stuff I was into was actually like funk and rock, and then through that there was this guy who played drums in his church, and he was really big into Dennis Chambers. That was like his guy.
I gotcha.
And I would watch him play, like in the band room, we had a drum set, and I couldn't do anything on the drum set. And he would get up there before and after school, and he would just be, for like a 15-year-old, he was wailing to me. And I would just stand and marvel, and I was like, man, how did you learn all that stuff? And he was like, Dennis Chambers. He would always say Dennis Chambers, and he let me borrow his, I think the company was DCI also. They had those videos. There was Serious Moves and In the Pocket.
Oh, man.
It was the same company that had the Dave Weckl videos.
Yeah, man. I know the exact video you're talking about. It was Dennis Chambers on that Pearl kit, just laying down some stank face.
Yes.
Funk grooves.
Oh yeah.
On that video, and that'll melt your brain as a 16-year-old kid.
Oh yeah. So I'm checking that out, and one of the cool things that happened was the guy on the video is interviewing Dennis in between one of those little sessions, and he's asking him about who he checked out, and Dennis starts by naming, like Billy Cobham and Narada Michael Walden and guys that I was familiar with because I was starting to get through him. But then he started talking about people like Tony Williams and Elvin Jones and, Philly Joe Jones and Art Blakey. And I had no idea who in the hell any of those guys were. And so I was like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, and I didn't have a drum teacher. I didn't have a drum teacher until I got to college, actually. I'm thinking, well, if he's listening to them and he sounds like that, then I need to go listen to them too and figure out what they're doing.
Right on.
And I got Tony Williams. I got Tony Williams' record, Lifetime, and then I also got this live record he did with Miles Davis, 4 and More. And that one in particular was so mind-boggling to me because I had never heard anybody play like real jazz before. And not only was he playing this very foreign style of music, but he had such a technical proficiency on the instrument, and everything he played was so clean and so well articulated. And the way that he organized everything, it was truly another, I just didn't understand it. And I had never experienced that before where, there's stuff that Dennis Chambers will play where I just, I can't technically play that.
Yeah.
But I understood what it was rooted in. With Tony's thing, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't play it. I couldn't even fathom it. And that pissed me off, actually.
Sure. Yeah, man.
So, when I found out that the new band director was a jazz guy, I just was hassling him, teach me something about jazz. And he eventually, realized that I was serious and had me start listening to records. And through him, that's how I got introduced to Florida State. And I auditioned at a bunch of different schools, but ended up taking it down to Tallahassee.
I gotcha. Well, look, if you're going to, and I'm going down a rabbit hole here, so bear with me if you don't mind.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm buckled up.
Okay. So, I think some of the best lessons any musician, whether you're a drummer, a guitar player, a trombonist, I don't care what instrument you play, but when you go to a teacher like your band director who was a jazz guy and you say, hey, I'm serious, I want to learn about this, some of the best lessons you can get aren't lessons. They're go buy this record, right? Mm-hmm. That advice, that's some of the best stuff that can come out of a lesson is when you ask a teacher, hey man, I'm serious, I want to learn about this. And they say, okay, never mind, what the notation is or whatever the case may be. They just say, go buy this record and listen to it and you'll get it. And that's the roots. So you went off to Tallahassee, to Florida State, and, lots of good stuff, I'm assuming, was learned down there in the jazz world. I'm not a jazz guy myself. I love jazz music. Can't play it to save my life. I'm a rock and roll dude all the way. If it doesn't have a backbeat, I'm lost. So I know that you were chosen coming out of Florida State to be a member of the Louis Armstrong Quintet at the University of New Orleans. Yeah. And that was right around the time of Hurricane Katrina. And you ended up not being able to go there. Am I getting that right?
Well, I did. I went there for about 2 months. I went there in the summer, and then Katrina hit in August, and it flooded where I was staying. And I lost one of my kids. I lost some of my transcriptions. I lost, all the material stuff that was not in my car. I had one of my kids in my car and my cymbals, luckily, and a few changes of clothes because everybody thought that it was just going to be like a scare, and it ended up being, what it was.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to that because there's so many great drummers. New Orleans just has, the first drum set players were from New Orleans.
Yes.
They were those early jazz guys that were kind of, okay, well, before, one guy or a girl was playing the snare drum, somebody was playing the bass drum, and then they're like, okay, well, what if can one person play all that? Well, let's come up with a foot pedal. Okay, now you have the first drum set, and all that history. And I was, people like Shannon Powell and Herlin Riley and Jason Marsalis, who I ended up later studying with and playing in his band for many years, and Troy Davis. There's tons of, just killing, Ricky Sebastian. So many guys I can't even name. from that city that I was really looking forward to, but alas, it was not meant to be.
Yeah. Well, and you ended up, and look, you know, I don't know the story, so color it in however you want. But you ended up awarded a full scholarship to Juilliard for their jazz program, but you decided New York wasn't the place for you, and you ended up going back to Florida State where you got your master's degree. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, after Katrina happened, I went back to North Carolina and kind of just regrouped, and I didn't even know if I was thinking at first I might want to go back to New Orleans, but it was such a mess down there. It was kind of unlivable down there for like a year. I mean, there was so much destruction and just a lot going on. And I actually taught at my old high school for a year and a half, which was a great experience for me. And I actually really miss that now, working with the kids and, you know, doing marching percussion, doing percussion ensemble, beginning percussion, working with the jazz guys. It was a really cool experience, but then I knew I needed to keep learning and working on my craft. And I got into Juilliard, but it was a combination of New York just being, even with the scholarship covering the tuition and stuff, the living cost of living in New York is just,
man, a studio apartment, you know, with like one of the fold down Murphy beds is like $3,000 a month or something. I mean, it's stupid.
And then that alongside, you know, at that time there were, there were some people that were involved with that program that, let's just say that I didn't think my best interest was in mind there, and kind of honestly the way that I got treated throughout the application and audition process was pretty jive. You know, I kind of was getting treated like a number, and that was my vibe with some of these, you know, bigger, quote unquote fancier programs is it's almost like you know, you need us, we don't need you. And I'm not looking for anybody to kiss my butt or anything, but at least treat me, you know, like a human being that's worth something. And I knew at Florida State, just from my previous experience, that at least the professors there cared about me and cared about my development as a person, not just as a player. And that, along with the fact that an amazing piano player, Marcus Roberts, who played with Wynton Marsalis and has his own band trio for years and years and years, it's been successful. He started working there too. So that just added more ammunition for me to want to go back down there and really put in some serious work.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, that all makes sense. And you have to make the best decision for you. You know, if something doesn't feel right, it probably ain't right, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to feel right too. You know, so kudos to you for choosing to do that. But, you know, you explored higher education, got your master's degree from Florida State, and, you know, you mentioned it earlier. You played with Jason Marsalis, you know, for many years, and you went all over the world. I mean, just looking at, you know, some of the places you've played, you know, Austria, Spain, Switzerland, Greece, Italy, China, Australia. I mean, dude, it's crazy. You've been all over the world playing drums.
Yeah, I've been very lucky and fortunate to have those opportunities. I mean, a lot of those places, a plane ticket to Australia, I mean, it's just, that's like that's like 2 months of my mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's something that if it wouldn't have been for music, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have had those opportunities to get to go to all those different places. And that's one of the great things about it. This, the additional rewarding things is, you put in all of this time and energy, and you sit in a little room and you drive yourself crazy trying to master these minute details of an art form. And then when you get the payoff, it's very rewarding. And I just, over my career, as frustrating as it is sometimes when things don't work out the way that I've wanted them to, I've really tried to, when I get those experiences, kind of try to, sit back and take some mental pictures and really appreciate those experiences when they happen, because, they are special, and not everybody gets to do that. And even, especially we all found out over the last 2 years that it can all get taken away, with the, snap of the finger. So,
it's crazy. I mean, look, everybody, and again, I'm going down another rabbit hole here, so bear with me, but look, I've got a day gig. I've had a day gig for, 20 something years. I work in finance, and, it affords me a decent living. So I haven't been, necessarily a starving musician for most of my adult life, which is great. But, you get used to the extra income that comes from gigging and doing sessions and things like that. And then all of a sudden you have something like COVID, a global health pandemic that basically shuts all of that down. You got to figure out, what am I going to do? And I know that, like, for you touring with Jason, that all kind of came to an end at the end of 2019, and it was like, okay, what's next? So how did you spend the last 2 years, since touring with Jason, you haven't really done a lot during the pandemic. And we'll start talking about Retro Groove here in just a second. But how did you, from the touring income, and that goes away, how have you spent the last couple of years?
Good question. And I also, and this is something that I actually am proud to say. I also too have a day job, and have had a day job, for almost 14 years. And that's probably surprising. Well, maybe surprising to hear. Maybe if people don't like my playing, it's not surprising. But when I got out of my master's degree, I moved to Atlanta, and that was right in the middle of the recession. The financial crisis. And there just was not nearly the amount of work that I was expecting, I was banking on. I mean, I would drive up from Tallahassee to Atlanta all the time, and do a lot of work there. And there was and still are a lot of great players here. And I was thinking, this would be a great spot for me to kind of have a home base. And there's just a lot of work dried up. And I kind of I saw two options at that moment. I said, I can either do a bunch of gigs that I don't want to do and run the risk of becoming burnout, because I'm somebody, I just know this about myself. If I'm playing music, a lot of music that I don't believe in, with people that don't care about it, I I'm going to end up being a very dark individual. And I'm going to start losing the passion that I have to play music in the first place, which the inspiration for me was never fortune and glory. It was always, I just love playing the music. I love playing the music for people. And the other option is get a day job, and then I can pick and choose whatever music I want to play. Right. And that's what I decided to do. And so over the pandemic, I was able to work remotely, and it was actually awesome because they're not awesome. I mean, everything was going on in the world was terrible. Let me codify that. It was awesome from a practicing standpoint because there were no gigs, and I actually was able to redo my entire kind of technique over that time. And I found a teacher that I started studying with, this guy named Gary LeFrancois, who's an old school, and he probably get pissed off if I say that, but he has that old school technical foundation, coming out of, people like Joe Morello and George Lawrence Stone, and he studied with Freddie Gruber, and he just understands how the body works in relation to the instrument. And I've always been looking for that. My whole musical life, I've been looking for a teacher that knows that style and that way of playing the instrument, that very tension-free kind of just following the rebound and all of that. And I was able to take like a good year where I hardly was playing any gigs at all and just really retool my entire approach. And it was amazing for me in that regard.
So a lot of wood shedding is what I'm hearing.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I think there's a fine line, and, or a bright line, I should say, not a fine line, but a bright line. A lot of people just, when the pandemic started, it was just like, okay, I'm shutting down. I don't have gigs. I'm going to Netflix and chill. Or I'm going to lock myself in the practice space and come out a badass. And it sounds like you chose the latter.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good for you, Dave, man. That's awesome. That's what you love to hear. So I know that it was kind of during that time, 2020, 2021, that, the whole, the seeds were germinating for retro groove, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So it actually started a little bit before that. Probably the first time I got I put my very first record out in 2017, over the summer of 2017. And then once, every record, I'm self-aware enough to know that I didn't have like another Thriller on my hands. So I knew it wasn't going to be 3 years of world tours associated with that and platinum record sales. So, once that record had kind of run its course, I had toured it for a little bit. I had gotten a little bit of radio airplay and kind of squeezed all the juice out of that. Then it was like, okay, what is going to be the next thing? Because that's, kind of, the life that we choose. It's like, you got to keep moving forward and do something, do the next thing. And I started thinking about how, the record I did, I was really happy with my first record. I got a lot of the people that I had played with. Jason's on it, Marcus Roberts is on it, and the guys that I played with Jason, some of the other guys that I really like to play with. And it was originals and a few arrangements that I had. And then for the second record, I was like, I don't really want to do that again because, and it's not because I didn't like it or I don't, feel that there's a place for that, but I started thinking about what that's not really going to move the needle at all. I don't, even though I played with Jason Marsalis, my last name isn't Marsalis.
Yeah.
I'm not a household name in music or drums. And I started thinking about like what is a concept that I could try to exploit that hasn't really maybe been fully dealt with before, or dealt with to a great extent. And then, I started thinking just about, songs, because, and that's the impetus for the whole record. The new record is, people would come up from time to time and say, hey, I like what y'all are doing, but I don't really know any of these quote unquote jazz standards or these songs. I don't know John Coltrane's music. I don't know Thelonious Monk's music. You guys are playing these songs that but we don't know them, and I don't know the melody of them, and I don't really understand where they came from. And that always kind of put a little bug in my ear about, is it possible to pick some popular tunes that people do know, but play them in a way that's not going to be corny, or that's not going to be just a version of instrumental pop or almost like a smooth jazz thing? And, the first tune that I realized I could do that with is the first cut, is the tune Through the Fire that Chaka Khan did. And that song, the chord changes of that song are the same chord changes in the verse, at least, as Charlie Parker's Confirmation. And I realized, I'm like, okay, well, that's a jazz song's chord progression already in this. So even though it's the arrangement is drastically different and the groove is different on Chaka Khan's version, there's already the foundation of things that I can manipulate to make this a jazz arrangement and really be true to the jazz tradition and how we operate in terms of a language and an improvisatory conversational conception. So, and then more and more it came from there. And I worked, that one in particular, I worked with the saxophonist Miguel Alvarado. He helped me out, especially with a lot of the harmonic concepts, because unlike, somebody we were talking about earlier, like a drummer like Daphnis Prieto, I am not good on the piano. I'm doing stuff. It takes all the energy I have to try to voice chords and stuff. And
brother, let me tell you something. I can barely play the drums. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm doing well to be, halfway decent at my chosen instrument, let alone somebody else's instrument,
Oh, yeah. No, I feel that way often. So we recorded the music in October of 2019, and I was planning on releasing it in the summer of 2020, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And during that time of the pandemic, my playing had changed so much that I decided to re-record a bunch of stuff, because I don't know about you, but I have always had a real hard time listening to my own playing.
Oh yeah.
And when the farther it is removed from stuff I have played, and hopefully as I get better, it's almost like unlistenable to me. I can't, it drives me crazy. I won't even let like my wife put on stuff that I played on that's older, because I'm like, no, that's terrible. Get that away from me. So we went back and
I hear you.
We went back and re-recorded stuff in this past October of 2021, and that's the majority of what's on the record that you have that's out now.
Gotcha.
Is pretty much mostly the same arrangements with some minor tweaks and twists, but with a new version of it, because it just so much had changed in my own playing that I just felt like it didn't really do it justice to put out that older stuff, and frankly I just knew I could do a lot better with my part.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, the band that I played in, it's still playing in, I mean, we don't do as much as we once did because we all have families and, things going on. But, we released our first record in 98, and we decided in, late 2018 to do kind of like a 20th anniversary remix sort of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Like we just made the decision that if it's not on the tape, we're not redoing anything. Right. We're not going to do any overdubs. We're not going to, we'll remix, remaster. And that made it a little bit better to me. But, that record, I listened to it for 20 years and went, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? And it was just so hard for me to sit there and go, yeah, man, I was 21, I've learned a lot of stuff since I was 21 years old. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to listen to stuff for, 15, 20 years and go, man, it's hard for me to, so I get what you're saying, but the idea behind, Retro Groove, which the record came out, I want to say like the 22nd of March, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's, fresh off the truck. It's been out a couple of weeks now. I've listened to it, 4 or 5 times. And when I first heard about the concept of the record, I was like, I don't know, man, a jazz version of Cult of Personality by Living Colour. That, man, it may be, before I heard it, I thought this is either going to be incredible or it's going to be elevator music. You know what I mean? I thought there's one of two ways this can go. So when I saw the track listing before I'd ever, dropped the needle, so to speak, on it, I was like, this is either going to be incredible or it's going to be muzak, the easy listening, smooth jazz stuff. And so when I put it on for the first time, I went in with an open mind, but I knew it was going to go one of two ways. And some of these songs that are on this record are just classic stuff, Higher Love by Steve Winwood, In Your Eyes, Peter Gabriel. Yeah. When I listened to it, I was like, holy crap, man, Dave has figured this out. This is incredible. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just patting you on the back. This is a really good record, man.
Thank you.
It's really, really good. So I'm curious, it sounds so good. Where did you actually do the recording?
We did it, and this is one of those other things that kind of just worked out. So the tunes from the record are from the 80s, and you're a couple years, based off of doing the math in my head when you're talking about 98. You're a couple years older than me. You're my brother's age, so I was listening to all of the stuff that he was listening to, and that the MTV was big in our house, and that's kind of where the 80s was the decade that I chose to really pull this stuff from. And oddly enough, the saxophone player Miguel Alvarado lives in Nashville now, and there's a studio called County Q Studios that was built in the 80s, and it has like that vibe in there. It's not like ultra modern and really pretty, like a lot of the studios now. It just has that kind of like work, like you go in there to put in some work.
Yeah.
You know, and the engineer, he's a cool cat, Ace, and he really just, when I told him the idea, he was really open-minded. He was like, all right, let's try to capture that. And so, I love, I loved putting it down there, and I think all the stars aligned for us to get a good capture in there.
Well, I mean, the record sounds incredible. I mean, I'll just tell you straight up, it sounds great. And, it's like you said, you didn't want this to just be like a smooth jazz, Kenny G kind of record.
Oh, no. No.
And it's absolutely not that. Okay. I can hear the grit in it. You know what I mean? You did what you were trying to accomplish in that you got the, I don't want to say it sounds 80s because it doesn't. It's not overproduced for sure, but I can hear the grit in it. And I know what you were going for with it. And, I grew up a hard rock, heavy metal guy. So when I saw Cult of Personality, obviously that's going to be the first thing I listened to.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like Living Colour is one of the greatest bands of all time, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Those brothers had it figured out. Like,
oh, yes.
It was just perfect. And it was such a political statement in the late 80s for black men to put out this record. Like, we're hard rockers. We have something to say. It was so modern and so incredible. So that was going to be the first thing I listened to. And when I did, I was like, oh yeah, Dave's got this figured out here, so, and then I went back and listened to, What a Fool Believes, great, Kenny Loggins song, and Higher Love by Steve Winwood. And I mentioned earlier, In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. It's just so good, man. So good.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. It's just, you accomplished, I think, what you set out to do. So I'm saying right now, everybody should go pick up a copy of Dave Potter and Retro Groove. You're going to love it. I promise.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
man,
you.
for sure. So,
yeah, Living Colour, I mean, that, then into that grit, I mean, that's like, jazz at its roots. I mean, and a lot of stuff came out of jazz. I mean, rock and roll is a cousin to jazz music. I mean, if you listen to those first rock records with Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and even like Bill Haley and the Comets Rock Around the Clock, you can hear those drummers are swinging.
Oh yeah, they were all jazz dudes.
I mean, it was, they were that. So that, having the blues and I wanted it. I mean, the music that speaks to me has a certain visceral quality to it. Even the jazz that I like.
Yes.
That the same thing that I like about Living Colour is that energy is there, like in, for example, the music of John Coltrane. It's very much this raw emotion, and it has that grit, and it's not, it's the opposite of anything smooth. It's real life. It's happiness, sadness, frustration, triumph, heartbreak, all of that mixed into one, and it's kind of just cooking. And that's definitely what I wanted the record to convey, is all of these human emotions that we go through in our lives. And so I'm glad that came out.
It absolutely did. And mission accomplished, sir. I will just say that. And, after listening to, I want to say there's, I don't know, 9 or 10 tracks on the record.
Yeah,
I don't have it right in front of me right this second, but of the songs, I got to tell you, man, the one that I think you guys absolutely knocked out of the park, nailed it to the floor, killed it, is the Peter Gabriel song, In Your Eyes.
Oh, okay. That's not what I was going to think. That's not what I was thinking you were going to say.
No, man,
but,
I'm telling you
cool.
right now, that is, first of all, and I've had this conversation on this show, I don't know how many times. A good song doesn't care who sings it or how you play it. It's going to be a great song no matter what, whether it's, a singer-songwriter, solo acoustic guitar kind of thing, or a big band. It doesn't matter how it's presented. It's going to be a great song. And I think you guys absolutely drilled that one, hit it out of the park. It's just brilliant. So good.
Oh, that's good to hear, because that one in particular was probably the one that I was most concerned about, because it's such an iconic song. When you think about the movie Say Anything, and then it was parodied in Deadpool, where he's holding his phone with the little boombox app over his head, and that it's such a beautiful and haunting song, as a lot of Peter Gabriel's music is, and that's the one that I was concerned, can I get enough grit and will I have enough jazz in that to really fit the rest of the record? I didn't want that one to feel out of place. And so I'm glad that you dug that and that came across, because straddling the fence with this whole record, some songs were easier to find that balance between honoring the songwriter's original vision of the song with, bringing it into a jazz conception. And that one, that one was the toughest one. So I'm glad that came off.
It's brilliant, man. It's so good. So good. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
So let me ask this. Obviously I got, the MP3s basically, that's what I got to listen to kind of preview it before we did our interview. Is it available in physical format? Can you get it on CD and vinyl and all that good stuff?
Yes, definitely CD. You can get it on my website, davepottermusic.com, and then Amazon should have physical CDs. Okay. And then, of course, I always carry a large amount at shows to give. And I've thought about, especially given the fact of the subject matter on the record, I really was thinking about pressing some vinyls, and I wrestled a lot with that. It's so expensive to do the vinyl thing.
Yeah, it is.
And I still might do like a limited vinyl release of it. I kind of wanted to see what the initial reception of it was before I do that. But that is something that I've continued to think about. Given what the catalog and what the playlist of this record is.
Yeah, well, man, it's incredible. So, I mean, I think, it's so hard for people to make money on music. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's almost impossible if you're not doing, 200 nights a year someplace on tour. So I always encourage my listener, if you can find this in a physical format, if you can order the CD from Dave's website, that's going to help Dave the most, like going out and streaming it on Spotify a million times isn't going to be as good as buying 500 CDs from Dave, probably. Monetarily.
Yeah. Oh no,
speaking.
it's crazy. I don't know if you know this. Somebody hit me to this recently. I think unless they've changed it, one of the more recent formulas for it was it's like every 40,000, and I may be wrong, that may be not current anymore, but every 40,000 streams of a song on Spotify, I think earns the artist about $10.
Yes. I mean, that's the case. And nobody knows what that algorithm is. And, when, Peter Frampton, goes and testifies in front of Congress and says, Baby, I Love Your Way was downloaded 32 million times last year, and I got a check for $1,200.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what that math works out to be, but it's very true. People don't understand how hard it is for the modern musician when they put out a record as good as Retro Groove is. You said earlier, your first record that you put out in 2017, you were like, I knew there wasn't going to be any platinum sales. I'm a realist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody has platinum sales now.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Nobody has platinum sales unless you're, I don't know, Billie Eilish or the Foo Fighters or
somebody like that.
You're going to have to be at the top of the mountain to sell 1 million copies of anything. One of my favorite artists, of the last decade or so is Jason Isbell. And, his record, Southeastern, that he put out, I want to say it was 2013. It's one of my all-time favorite records, period. Bar none. I think it has gone gold now after nine years. And
wow.
Yeah. So it's just impossible to sell 1 million copies of anything now. So I always tell my listeners, buy a physical copy. Then rip it to MP3s if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not that hard. Help a brother out. Buy a physical copy. So for sure, man. Well, so what else do you have going on? I know you've been doing some dates with Greg Tardy, right? You've been doing some touring with Greg.
That's been really awesome. Amazing tenor saxophone player. Played in Elvin Jones' band for several years in the 90s, and then he actually got a record contract with Impulse and has done a bunch of dates since. So I actually met him on an airplane when I was in college. My group in college got invited to play at the North Sea Jazz Festival over in Holland, and that was actually my first time going overseas. And he was playing with a great pianist named Andrew Hill, and we were playing one of his compositions, Greg's compositions, and I asked him, if he would come and play on it with us if he was free. And I thought there's no way in the world that this guy, is a world-class guy, is going to play with some college kids. And to my surprise, he said, what time are y'all playing? And it was in the afternoon. He said, yeah, I'll come by, and he came by and he played it with us. And since then, that was about 16 years ago. We stayed in touch, and recently, he's called me for some stuff, and we just did a 5-day residency and a video recording of some really awesome and challenging music that he played. So I'm really excited about that. And then just, freelancing in Atlanta, freelancing in the Southeast, kind of wherever I get the call to do it, doing some teaching at various, clinics. And last year I was up in the Pacific Northwest and did some teaching out there and some master classes. And that's something I really love to do, is teach. And hopefully I can give back some of the stuff that I've picked up over the years. And that's really one of my favorite things, is to be able to share, whatever information and knowledge that I've gleaned in my time, and then pass that on.
Awesome, man. Well, that's fantastic, Dave. First of all, I want to say thanks for taking time to do this. I really do appreciate it. I love the record. I hope everybody will pick up a copy of it. It just hit the streets 10 days ago, something like that. At the time we're recording this, I think this episode will probably be out, first or second week of April. So make sure you go get a copy of Dave Potter and Retro Groove. It's such a good record. And man, I mean this sincerely. We will have you back to do this, again, anytime you want. I think this
thank you.
So great. But good luck to you. Let us know how we can help. We will make sure we have, a link to your website up on the drumshuffle.com by the time this episode gets out. How can people most easily reach out to you if they have questions or they want to see where you're going to be? Is it going to be davepottermusic.com? Is that the easiest way to find you?
Yeah, davepottermusic.com. And then I'm begrudgingly, so I have all the social media stuff, and I say that tongue in cheek. I think there are some really awesome things about social media in terms of being able to connect with people all over the world. I think there's some really terrible things about social media and how it has allowed people to be cruel to each other and have no consequences for it. But it's 2022, and I realize, that's the way of the world now. So I am on Instagram, I am on Twitter, I am on Facebook. So if that's folks' preferred way to communicate and reach out, we'll be happy to respond there. And again, also from davepottermusic.com. I'm happy to answer any questions, talk about the music, however folks want to reach out. I'm happy to respond.
Excellent, man. Well, listen, Dave, thanks so much for taking time to do this. I really do appreciate it. Best of luck to you. And we're going to send some folks your way. We'll do this again, whenever you want, brother.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and,
man.
Thanks for doing what you do and having a platform for us to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hopefully we'll keep it going for another 5 or 6 years.
Yes, sir.
Lord willing, as they say here in the South.
That's right.
All right.
Yep.
Dave, have a good evening, man.
Okay. Take care. You too.
All right. See ya. All right, guys and girls, that is going to do it for episode 144 of the Drum Shuffle podcast. As always, thanks to Dave Potter for taking time out of his schedule to come on the show and talk with us. And as I do each and every episode, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in. We simply cannot do this show without all of you doing so week in and week out. Our sincere gratitude. If you want to help the show, the biggest thing you can do for us is to share a link with a friend. whatever platform you're using to listen in to the Drum Shuffle podcast. Leave us a star rating, a review, a thumbs up, whatever applies to your specific scenario. Please do that. It helps us tremendously, and we can't thank you enough. Next week, I'm going to be joined by our old friend, the always effervescent Bernie Dressel is going to be joining us. Bernie is just the cat's pajamas. Cannot wait for you guys to hear the interview with him coming up next week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that interview. We answer every single email that we get here at the Drum Shuffle Podcast. That address is thedrumshufflepodcast@gmail.com. Our web address is thedrumshuffle.com. And of course, you can always find more information about me over at jamieeads.com. As always, your homework assignment for this week, go out and see some live music if it is safe for you to do so before it all goes away. So until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.